What's up, you guys? Welcome to trèSci Weekly, episode 9. I am one of your hosts, Jonathan Ullman, alongside nobody puts Tom in Tom's corner, Tom Kaya.
Thanks, man.
No problem. What's going on, man?
Doing well.
How was that lead-in? Can I use your name in the lead-in? Is that allowed?
I think so.
Okay. Just making sure I wasn't
think that's okay.
breaking any rules or anything. How's it going?
Going well.
Good. How's your week?
Staying on top of the science, trying to do some meditation and as much exercising as possible.
Right on.
As time allows.
Yeah. Hope all you guys also took some time to maybe meditate this past week. I didn't do any official meditation, but I was conscientious, I think, of trying to close my mind off to the surrounding area that I was in.
Dipping your feet into it?
Dipping my feet in, yeah. I need you to get me really going into it.
Okay.
I think. Yeah. So, what else is new? Anything?
What else is new? We just went to Lila's first birthday party over the weekend.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Happy
Shout
birthday.
out to the 1-year-old.
Yeah, happy birthday, Lila Joan.
Yeah, good birthday party.
Very nice.
Got to see friends and family.
Very cool. Yeah, same here. Nothing really too noteworthy. Rick and Morty season 3. We watched that earlier.
Yeah, just a few hours ago.
Yeah, I put it out on our Facebook page that it was like the best April Fool's kind of spoof present, if you will.
Yeah.
What an amazing TV show, man.
For real.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Rick and Morty is a cartoon on Adult Swim, and they're going into their 3rd season now, and it's been, I think, like a year and a half or 2 years
since the second season ended.
Yeah, since the second season ended, and there was no announcement that the 3rd season was going to premiere, so they just kind of
threw it
out there.
Fools, right?
Yeah, I missed it the night of, but I luckily caught it afterwards, and we just watched it again together. Man, what a good TV show. If you guys aren't watching Rick and Morty,
it puts science on a really fun and whimsical type, just crazy fun show.
Yeah, highly recommended. So I think that series is gonna really be one of the best TV series of all time when all is said and done. I'm not even joking around.
But
yeah,
I agree. So before we get started, just a quick shout out, James, Chris, Elia in the chat. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again. We'll run through the quick little spiel. This is trèSci Weekly. If this is your first time joining us, this is Tom and my science video series where we talk about science news and our kind of thoughts and opinions on what's going on in the world of science. Each week we come to you on YouTube Live, Monday nights at 8:30 p.m. You can always join us in the chat if you have a Gmail or YouTube account. We love kind of conversing with you guys throughout the show. If you're not with us live and you're just catching this on YouTube on demand, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Please subscribe to us if you like these videos and would like to get notifications as to when we go live. You can always join us on Facebook at facebook.com/trèSci Weekly, where I post out some longer articles and teasing what we're going to talk about in the show and just general
science things to keep you up to speed.
Yep. You can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/trèSci Weekly, where Tom will retweet some of the stories we are probably going to talk about on the week's show. And
yeah, just some of the most interesting things that I see.
And then if you'd like to support us financially, you can always go to patreon.com/trèSci Weekly, where you can pledge any amount of money that will kind of go on a subscription basis. Of course, you don't have to do that. That's always up to you. If you'd like to do that, the videos will always be free as we distribute them. That all said, Tom, I think it's time
to just get right into the news.
So
how are we looking?
So, 9th episode, 9 stories this week, but most of them are going to be kind of shorter videos that we're just going to watch through with the audience and kind of discuss afterwards. So not too much reading, although a couple longer stories interspersed there. The first one is a trailer, and it's the trailer to An Inconvenient Sequel. So here we go. Number 1, Al Gore and Paramount Pictures have announced a new film, An Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power, which is set to release on July 28th, 2017. The film will be a follow-up to the 2006 documentary An Inconvenient Truth, which attempted to raise awareness about climate change and global warming. So we have that video,
the trailer for you.
That trailer queued up. So Kyle, if you want to just let me know when to switch over to it. I'm going to close this, and you tell me when.
It's supposed to be 70 degrees today. It's freezing here. Speaking of global warming, we need some global warming. It's freezing.
The most criticized scene in the movie An Inconvenient Truth was showing that the combination of sea level rise and storm surge would flood the 9/11 memorial site. And people said, what a terrible exaggeration.
Hurricane Sandy slammed into New York City last night, flooding the World Trade Center site.
Storms get stronger and more destructive. Watch the water splash off the city. This is global warming.
I feel so scared. Sorry.
Despair can be paralyzing, but this to me is the most exciting new development. We're seeing a tremendous amount of positive change. The basis is there, but it's still not enough.
It's crunch time at the climate change conference in Paris.
Still some really tough negotiations going on.
What would it take to shift to renewables? I'm talking about breaking the impasse. Virtually every nation in the entire world agreed to get to zero greenhouse emissions. It is unprecedented.
It's time to put America first. That includes a promise to cancel billions in climate change spending. Our plan will end the EPA.
The next generation would be justified in looking back at us and asking, what were you thinking? Couldn't you hear what the scientists were saying? Couldn't you hear what Mother Nature was screaming at you? This movement is in the tradition of every great movement that has advanced humankind.
We're not going to recognize it. We don't want to discuss it.
It is right to save humanity. It is wrong to pollute this earth. It is right to give hope to the future generation. Don't let anybody tell you that we're going to get on rocket ships and live on Mars. This is our home.
All right. Tom,
Yes.
What do you think of that? What do you think of that trailer?
Pretty powerful, and I think the tone is pretty clear that they're, they're pretty angry with the way a lot of this has gone down.
Yeah. I think it's definitely, like you said, powerful. It sends a strong message. I think it comes out with fists, right? Fists at the ready, which you and I were discussing a little bit. I don't know if that's the best kind of mentality to take with this video, because it really looks like they're targeting Donald Trump and the administration as the villains here. And I really hope that the actual documentary doesn't
have that whole undertone.
Yeah, it doesn't do that the whole time, because I really think that that's actually going to be detrimental in the long run, because if the people that are supporting what Donald Trump is doing by dismantling the EPA,
and redistributing funds
they're going to be invigorated by that. If you come out swinging at them,
this gung ho, like, you're wrong, you're the bad guy, and we're ready to fight you guys.
Yeah,
like they say, like, what's the last quote? Like, fight like
the world depends on it,
or something
like that.
It paints a pretty clear picture. Like, these people, they're saying these people are basically destroying our planet.
Yeah.
And it's up for you to fight them and save it, basically.
That's true.
It's a pretty clear message.
It is a pretty clear message.
I've always liked the the title, An Inconvenient Truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's an inconvenient truth. So, it stinks to acknowledge these facts for so many people, but I mean, they are what they are.
Yeah. What I think the trailer does well is that it sets up the statement that Al Gore has responding to kind of what Donald Trump's administration is doing by saying that the younger generations, the future generations would
point to us,
would be well within their right to point to us and say, what were you doing when you had a chance? And I think that's fair. I think that's a fair thing to point out, because like we were saying, our generation looks to the past generations of this financial distress that we're in, and we find ourselves sitting amongst a housing crisis and a
yeah, that's a very good point that you bring up, that
like the student loan crisis that's going to inevitably happen, where the bottom falls out on that whole system. Yeah. We can point to them and be like, you screwed this up. This is your fault. We're paying for it, but this is your kind of fault. Yeah. And future generations would have that in terms of the environment. They would be able to point to us and be like, you screwed up. You screwed up.
Yeah, it's a good point to make.
So I like that point. I mean, I imagine you and I will go see this movie together, and Kyle, and we'll offer some thoughts on it after the fact. But interesting. I just wanted to start there because it was the first thing I saw going into the week, and I think it's pretty salient to talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy going from 2006 to 2017.
Yeah,
and still pushing the same exact message.
Yeah, Al Gore looks like quite a bit older.
Yes.
Than when I remember the first documentary coming out.
He looked like a vibrant guy running for president.
Yeah.
10 years go by.
The other thing I want to point out, too, is the way that this trailer starts. In An Inconvenient Truth, the first one, they say, New York City, the World Trade Memorial would be underwater, implying that sea level would rise just to a rate where it would just sit underwater forever. I feel like they're kind of covering themselves a little bit with being like, Hurricane Sandy did put it underwater for a brief period of time.
Yeah,
that's
it was
true.
A hurricane.
Yeah,
that happens, but
so
it's kind of funny how they're trying to like cover their tracks, but they don't even have to.
Yeah,
like we get it.
Yeah, interesting. All right, shall we move on? Anybody in the chat have any thoughts to offer on that trailer?
I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good to move on from that one.
All right, so let's move on. Number 2, playing Tetris, the classic tile matching puzzle video game, has been proven to help prevent symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, according to a study published in Molecular Psychiatry by Lali Iyadurai and colleagues. PTSD may be diagnosed when an individual undergoes continued mental or physical distress for at least 1 month after experiencing or witnessing a traumatic, life-threatening event. One of the core symptoms of PTSD are intrusive memories, or flashbacks, of the event. According to neuroscience reports, behavioral interventions, primarily cognitive tasks with high visuospatial demands, have been shown to limit the intrusive nature of memories. Quote, memory consolidation theory suggests a time window of several hours post-trauma during which trauma memory is malleable and vulnerable to disruption, end quote. The study by Iyadurai et al. Is the first clinical trial for using the video game Tetris to prevent such intrusive memories. 71 motor vehicle accident victims took part in the study. Half of them recalled the trauma incident briefly and were then given a Nintendo DS to play Tetris for 20 minutes while waiting in the emergency room. The other half, or the control group, were instructed to keep a written log of activities they had engaged in, for example, reading, talking, or texting, for 20 minutes also during their time waiting in the emergency room. Results showed that over the week immediately following the accident, the individuals who played Tetris had fewer intrusive memories in total than the individuals who did not.
Yeah, that's it's kind of cool the way they did this study. I find it fascinating when you read it, like the way they try and conduct these studies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's such a hard thing to do, taking people after they were in like a motor vehicle accident and then studying them in a hospital, having some people play a game and other people just doing something else. It's like, it's such a hard thing to study and make an experiment about.
Yeah.
Very interesting though.
I was saying this to my girlfriend Kayla, actually. The control group, and we'll talk about this when we get kind of to the end a little bit. The control group sort of necessitates that they are not maybe familiar with video game playing in general. And I'll offer my thoughts on why when we get to the end here a little bit.
All right.
So also, the intrusive memories that did occur diminished more quickly by the Tetris players, right? So even if they had intrusive memories, it kind of went away a little bit quicker if they played Tetris rather than not playing Tetris. Feedback was provided by a select number of participants. Quote, I like this quote. A woman in her 60s who had never played Tetris before nor used a Nintendo DS described playing the game as good, really fun. She asked to continue playing for a little longer, even when the 20-minute intervention period was over. At the end of the study, she commented, "It certainly took my mind off of it at a time when I probably would have sat brooding and feeling very sorry for myself. When you're running the whole thing through your mind and you're on your own at a vulnerable time after the ambulance crew have left you." End quote. Further research is needed to test the benefits of having played Tetris after longer periods of time have passed since the traumatic event, as well as testing other games for similar results. So I think that's pretty interesting. I know that this is great news because I think I'm developing PTSD after playing games like we play, like Overwatch. Just as an aside. But my thought to this of why the Control probably didn't really play games was that you wonder if there's a scale, right? Yeah. We know from neuroscience reports the reason they started this study or even felt that it was worthwhile to test is because neuroscience says visuospatial interaction will limit the intrusive nature of memories.
Yeah, so basically what they're saying is if you're engaging in a visual that's stimulating enough that has you maneuvering around another space that's outside of your own body as you're doing that, that sort of takes up a large function of your brain power, being able to, maneuver through this world. And so they concluded that those people who did this, they had lower intrusive memories, those memories that were maybe a little suppressed that came out that they're struggling with dealing with, putting else something there that would otherwise be that memory. It's just another demanding thing on your mind that, well, if you want to do this, your brain has to focus a lot on that.
Right.
So I think it's not just video games and not just Tetris.
Right.
I think you could apply this to a lot of other games and, like a lot of other engaging ways to help with things like post-traumatic stress disorder.
Probably.
But video games and Tetris is a cool place to start.
Exactly.
To think.
And my girlfriend was like, yeah, I mean, Peggle would probably have the same effect. It's that kind of visual spatial engagement that we're looking for. And I said it would be interesting to study another variable group of people who are self-declared video game players. Because I wonder, Tom, is the nature of Tetris or a game like Peggle not involved enough for somebody like you or myself
to just do that and have it be beneficial?
You know what I mean?
You played games our whole life, yeah.
And to me, Tetris is a very passive game. I actually don't have to really concentrate on it or think about it when I play it. It's just kind of like relaxing in a sense.
Relative to another game where you'd be in a first-person perspective competing and playing against people in a much more engaging world than just watching blocks fall and moving them. Whereas for a 60-year-old woman who never really played video games, that might have a pretty profound effect on her brain and how she's processing these memories.
Right, because she's never played Tetris, so she's learning how to play it as this is happening. Yeah. Whereas me, I know how to play Tetris. I'm not like a Tetris master.
Learning a whole new game might be a lot more beneficial than just having, say, random people in the ER playing a video game.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, an interesting study nonetheless. And
but yeah, games definitely change your brain.
For sure.
They're super engaging.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Moving on.
Number 3. This one's a long one, Tom, so stick with me.
Yeah, we'll hang in there, guys.
CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing techniques continue to show promise of effectively curing genetic diseases in humans, according to a study by Lisheng Tang and colleagues at Guangzhou Medical University in China. As we've mentioned before in previous coverage, the CRISPR-Cas9 technique makes use of a single guide RNA molecule to target a specific section of DNA, which will be cut by the Cas9 protein. What we haven't probably said in previous coverage of this is exactly how it works, which I'll just get into here. And that's probably because I personally have not really understood exactly how it works, but this will offer hopefully a little bit more insight. The cut to the DNA's double helix structure allows the cell to make repairs via a process called homology-directed repair, which is precise enough to be considered for genome editing of genetic defects. Quote, Previous works using human tripronuclear zygotes suggested that the CRISPR-Cas9 system could be a tool in correcting disease-causing mutations. However, whether this system was applicable in normal human dual pronuclear or 2PN zygotes was unclear, end quote. Right? So they've looked at this technique and they've tested it on tripronuclear zygotes, which are not going to develop into a human zygote, right? And they've found that it's effective. And now they're saying, let's take the next step. Let's try it with a zygote that could be inseminated and
would be that if was inseminated would grow into a human.
Correct. During in vitro fertilization, the appearance of two pronuclei or 2PN, and what we're saying when we say that is basically the nucleus of a sperm or egg cell, within 18 hours of insemination usually indicates successful fertilization and are termed 2PN. If somewhere along the way the 2PN zygote transitions into a 1PN or 3PN state, the zygote may develop into an unhealthy embryo. Patients involved with the study gave signed consent for use of 3PN embryos as well as, quote, immature oocytes and leftover sperm to produce 2PN zygotes for research, end quote. The study targeted corrections of mutations in two genes, the first being the hemoglobin subunit beta, or HBB gene, which, quote, provides instructions for making a protein called beta globin. Beta globin is a component or subunit of a larger protein called hemoglobin, which is located inside red blood cells, end quote. So basically, the first mutation that they're testing to see if they can prevent or correct for is would be destructive in the production of hemoglobin in your blood.
Which is very important.
Very important. The second being the glucose-6-phosphate dehydrogenase, or G6PD gene, which, quote, provides instructions for making an enzyme that is active in virtually all types of cells and is involved in the normal processing of carbohydrates, end quote. So those are the two
ones that they're looking at.
Ones that they're looking to, exactly.
So the one with glucose and then the one with hemoglobin.
Correct.
So processing your sugars for breaking things down in energy, and the other one, hemoglobin, which is found in all your red blood cells. So these are two things where if there's something wrong with them, you're going to have serious health conditions.
Exactly.
Serious.
The results from this study showed that the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technique proved to be effective in the 2PN zygotes, but ultimately ineffective in the 3PN zygotes. Quote, for G6PD, only 2 mutation-carrying embryos were created, and both underwent homology-directed repair on the mutant allele, so HDR occurred at 100%. One embryo was completely corrected, and another became mosaic, with half of its cells corrected, and another half suffered a 4BP deletion around the mutation, end quote. Mosaicism is a condition where cells within the same person have a different genetic makeup. The condition does not necessarily mean the embryo will develop into an unhealthy fetus, but it certainly can lead to complications. So if your cells are kind of taking genetic makeup from 2 different sources, that can be a problem depending on the cells, right? If it's your skin cells, not so big of an issue, but if it's your brain cells, maybe a problem.
Yeah, so they're saying there's actually different genetic makeup between one person's cells in one person. So there's actually different genetic information in some cells as opposed to other based on this process.
Right. Now, in vitro techniques, this mosaicism condition is identified early, and what most couples undergoing that could opt to do is to just throw out
that one,
any embryos that are mosaic. That's a whole nother topic of debate that I don't think we're going to get into exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just reporting on what these guys did, basically. Quote, for HBB, homology-directed repair occurred at 50%, 1 out of 2 edited embryos. However, homology-directed repair efficiency was much lower in 3PN embryos, only 20% for G6PD and 10% for HBB. The explanation for these differences is currently unclear, but experimental data from higher numbers of embryos are required to be meaningful, end quote. So this is interesting because they decided to take the step with 2PN embryos based on the success that other studies had shown with 3PN. But then when they tried to reproduce the 3PN results, they weren't able to do it.
They weren't getting those higher success rates.
Yeah. So while this is an interesting step forward for CRISPR-Cas9, clinical trials are still impossible due to ethical and technical issues, and image credit for this one goes to Tong et al. So Tom, what does this mean for the future?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer, right? So in a lot of the articles that we were reading saying that we're pretty close to doing a lot of these amazing things like gene editing in embryos to correct mutations, but they're also saying at the same time that we have the capabilities to do this. Like at the same time, the articles are saying there's a lot of ethical standpoints and things that we're still not really getting into yet, and they're working on precision, like making sure that the cut sites are exact and the things that they're editing are done in a way that's basically 100%. That's what they're trying to get to.
Correct.
And then getting to that 100% and then being able to move into these ethical questions. But I mean, they took a zygote, right, and they edited it for a gene that they wanted it to, and they did it.
They did it.
You know, a
It
gene
worked.
that would have caused a mutation in a way your blood carried hemoglobin or the way your body processed glucose, both which are things that you need to do correctly if you want to be a healthy person.
Right.
So they've shown that they can do that.
Now, it's important to note that if things would have just transpired naturally, these 2PN zygotes probably would not have developed the genetic mutation to hinder that process growing into, birthing a child.
But this is just eliminating the chance that it could be there.
Exactly. This is just totally making sure that we're preventing that from ever happening. So that's
gotcha. So,
interesting.
Yeah, so you wouldn't even have to say, is this person at super risk for it? Should we correct it? You can just sort of correct it across all baselines, so it wouldn't happen. That's kind of what they're proposing you would be able to do in the future using this sort of technique.
Yeah. And we've also talked about the fact that there is now a committee that have decided upon the fact that this technique is allowed to be used in situations that are deemed necessary, right?
So so that's what they say at the end, that the legality of the situation, if enough rise needs to use this process and it meets a lot of strict criteria, that it can be done as of now.
So that's
which
kind of,
I don't really know. It's kind of loose.
It's kind of vague.
Yeah, loose lawyer lingo kind of.
I interpret that as meaning if there were some widespread genetic mutation that was like killing large populations of humans, then this technique, if this proved to work, they would streamline it and say we're gonna make sure that this doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that last time we talked about this.
Yeah,
I think it might have been one of our first episodes ever, but we were talking about if society did need to use this, if it was a big problem that early zygotes, it was a big mutation problem, a lot of people were developing this sort of mutation or mal effect that you don't want. I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it would get streamlined.
Yeah, but it's interesting that we have this committee that has to address
abide by these rules, and
because, like we said, this information is here now. It is available to scientists.
You can't just ignore it,
and we can't ignore it, because if you do ignore it, now people could go behind your back and do it. So we are at a time in human civilization where we have to confront the fact that we can alter people's genetics before they grow into people.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Definitely is.
So, are we ready to move on, or is there anything?
There was Carrie's comment in chat saying, "What do we think about being palindromic?" I think that's when it reads the same forwards and backwards, and they use that palindromic sections usually because it's easier to fit it into the guide RNA, I think.
Correct.
Because it can go almost either way. It's more of a foolproof, easier way to allow for the cutting and the sequencing to happen. And I think it's kind of more complicated than that, though. I'm pretty sure from the articles that I've read. So I think he's trying to get to the point that it is kind of a beautiful sort of process that happens where you go in, you cut it. It's physical things are actually happening. So you need to really take account of your equipment. You need to know exactly the RNA you're using. being really on top of your stuff to make sure that it all works the way it does.
So you probably know more than I do about this. The palindrome sequence, is that talking about the nucleotides? The order of the nucleotides? Are those the sequences that are palindromic, or
no? I think the thing that they're inserting into cut is a palindrome, just because it's easier to work that way, and then it has the information at that point. Then it can go find the cut, and it can go either way as it needs to open it up and cut it and then come back.
Got it. So in a sense, it's a method of identification.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's just an easier template to use something that's palindromic like that in order to do this process.
Cool.
I think researchers they found it out, put it in the journals. Everyone's like, oh, we'll use this. This seems like a good way to apply it.
Yeah.
One of those type of things.
Yeah. Palindromes, by the way, just in general, are super interesting. A palindrome is a word that reads the same forwards and backwards. So like the word race car, for example, is a palindrome. If you're ever curious, I've shared this with some people actually pretty recently. There is a huge poem written by comedian Dimitri Martin that is a palindrome.
Really? It reads the same forwards and backwards?
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
And it's long. It's like many words long. So,
I had no idea. That's crazy.
I'll share that maybe with the Facebook group this week.
Cool.
Moving on.
Sounds good.
Number 4. On Thursday, March 30th, astronauts Shane Kimbrough and Peggy Whitson conducted a 6.5-hour spacewalk on the exterior of the International Space Station. The goal of the spacewalk was to, quote, further prepare the space station for commercial spacecraft dockings, as well as perform maintenance and inspection, end quote. Things went somewhat awry upon installing one of the 4 new thermal protection shields when the shield unexpectedly came loose and drifted off into space.
So that literally happened. They're like, no!
Yeah.
And then it's gone.
Pretty much, yeah. Due to the size of the shield, quick calculations were made by Mission Control at NASA's Johnson Space Center to ensure that it would not crash into the ISS, another satellite, any surrounding space debris, or back down to Earth's surface. So a lot of calculations had to be made.
So think about Mission Control. Someone's like, where's this going? Figure this out right now.
Seriously, probably a stressful moment.
Is this an issue?
Yeah.
Do the math. Where's it going?
Yeah. Quote, this shield measures about 1.5 meters by 0.6 meters, or 5 feet by 2 feet, and is 5 centimeters or 2 inches thick. It also weighs a little over 8 kilograms, or 18 pounds, which would make it a serious impact hazard given the relative velocity of orbital debris, which is 28,000 kilometers per hour, end quote. So
anything it's like a bowling ball moving 28,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, so even though to the astronauts who are like on the International Space Station, it's floating kind of away from them. They're all moving at
that relative speed.
Yeah, at 28,000 kilometers an hour. So moving quick. Luckily, it was determined that the shield will simply burn up in the Earth's atmosphere over time. As a backup plan to installing the shield, Kimbrough and Whitson were instructed to cover the pressurized mating adapter, or the PMA-3, with the cover that was removed by Whitson earlier that day. Right? So they took this cover off to install the shield. They lost part of the shield, so they said, all right, let's just put the cover back on. This spacewalk would see Whitson setting the record for the most spacewalks by a female astronaut with 8, as well as the most total time spent spacewalking by a female astronaut, clocking in at just over 53 hours. An image tweeted out by fellow ISS crew member Thomas Pesquet depicts Kimbrough and Whitson during the spacewalk, and he writes in both English and French, quote, on the Earth's dark side, a spacewalk feels like scuba diving at night, end quote. And we have that picture, Kyle, if you wanted to bring that up for us.
Scuba diving at night.
So, spooky, to say the least.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine what that's like.
Right? Sometimes I'm like, man, it would be so cool to be an astronaut. That would not be one of those times. You're just hurling through space at 28,000 kilometers an hour.
In what appears to be complete blackness.
Yeah, in the dark.
And you're in free space. You're not even in the space
You're
station.
outside the space station.
Spacewalking.
Yeah, that's... I give them a lot of credit.
That's got to get the nerves on edge a little bit, no matter who you are.
So we also have a video of this spacewalk happening.
So we can actually check it out?
Yeah, so this is a video by NASA's YouTube channel. We don't see, unfortunately, the shield floating away. I think this is before that happens. But Kyle, you let me know when we can hit play over here.
the spare bag that she will be stowing the cover in for the first of her tasks that's on top of the PMA-3. She'll be attaching that to her body restraint tether. That just means she'll be clipping the bag to herself so she can free up her hands and use to
So she can't
move
float away?
to that first work location. Now beginning to see
That would be a harder
the sun
calculation.
rise and illuminate the outside of the International Space Station. Shane Kimbrough should be coming out the airlock shortly.
It's so weird that you can just watch it.
Yeah.
Watch it happen.
And the label MDM 16 Echo 0103.
Ready to listen. Okay, warning, do not contact the PMA-3 port and forward faces with your EMU TMG for more than 3 seconds with a pound of pressure. So you can use your BRT as necessary for body positioning, and avoid contact with the PMA-3 grapple fixture targets, target pins, and shafts. And a reminder that the CBM pedals may not be used as handholds.
Don't reach there.
It's wild.
Copy. And
So
2289, you'll be looking for
It's
P1.
like the people that go and do
2260,
like skyscraper window cleanings,
One of those
but
things.
like on steroids.
Yeah.
Don't look down, Tom.
Again, our two spacewalkers at two different locations.
Yeah, just look
now
down
we're
and see
getting
the
a view
whole
of,
planet.
Shane
Yeah.
Kimbrough. He can be identified by the red stripe on his thigh, and whenever we get to his helmet camera, he'll be helmet camera designation number 18. Again, Peggy Whitson over on the other side of the International Space Station, about to start her task of taking that cover off the top of the pressurized mating adapter. You just heard Shane Kimbrough getting instructions over on the other side, about to drive out the bolt.
Is to lift the cover
So this
off,
is pretty early
the portion
because
taking those straps off,
this
and
is
just
when
kinda
they're
pull it
taking
up.
the cover off, right? And they eventually put it back on when the shield floats away.
The lid tether, the lid strap, the inner lid strap. It's what it is.
So spooky looking.
You can see that attached to Peggy Whitson right here. She'll be using that strap to her as she uses her
And she's
hand to
the
climb
woman with
over
the
to
most
the airlock.
spacewalking hours.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, she's been on a lot of expedition missions. I should have grabbed the number of how many now, but she's been up to the ISS quite a bit, which is like, you go, girl. That's awesome. I wish. But like I said, then again, looking at it, maybe not.
It is, yeah, very extreme.
Large, small out of there. When you're configured or in position, your first
It
step
reminds
for
me
both
of like
you will
getting
be to
frustrated
attach
trying
an
to build
MWS
something
ret
like from
to the
IKEA or
AET
Target or
D-ring
something and it doesn't
of the
work.
tether loops you
Couldn't even
created.
imagine being free floating in deep space
Yeah.
and having a little problem like they had. Be freaking out.
Yeah, we're doing the mini workstation one for
Yeah.
each shield first.
Oh, okay. Right.
Oh, okay.
And again, as you ret to the AET, you're actually going to use the D-ring on the AET and verify your tether to opposite shields.
So this was just for future docking missions as well as just general maintenance?
Correct.
That was the goal of the spacewalk?
So, that's right, Tom. And that is a perfect segue into the next story.
Okay.
So number 5. SpaceX also made history on Thursday, March 30th, when they successfully launched and landed a refurbished Falcon 9 rocket. This marks the first time that an orbital-class first stage was successfully reused. Quote, the first stage that flew Thursday logged nearly 9 minutes of flight time during a space station resupply launch on April 8, 2016, soaring above the 62-mile-high or 100-kilometer internationally recognized boundary of space before descending to a vertical landing on a platform in the Atlantic Ocean, end quote. This time around, the rocket took off at 6:27 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time from Launchpad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida. The launch allowed for the successful deployment of the SES-10 communications satellite into geostationary orbit. And a geostationary orbit, Tom, is an orbit that kind of tracks the rotation of the Earth. So
It always stays over the same point.
Right. If you were to look at that satellite from Earth, it would just appear as something that kind of tracks along with you in the night sky, which is cool. The Falcon 9 rocket then descended back to Earth, touching down on SpaceX's sea-based landing platform about 340 miles east of Cape Canaveral in the Atlantic Ocean.
I think we showed the video of it landing back.
So that was a different
mission. Previous launch.
That was just another fresh rocket. This one launched last year.
Yeah, I just meant we showed like the landing process.
Yes, we did.
How they actually land their rocket back.
And we'll watch it again, actually.
Yeah, they landed
it's just so cool.
Right back down.
This is another important benchmark for SpaceX as they continue to push towards launching and landing rockets routinely at a fraction of the current cost to do so. So video credit goes to SpaceX, Space.com, and the Video from Space YouTube channel for this one, Tom. Let's take a look at it. Kyle, if you could give me the go-ahead on when to play that bad boy.
Second, let me see how things are going on the first stage. And we're coming up on the engines.
They're already launched, and this is going to be the landing now.
Yes.
You can hear the applause in the background from the SpaceX team gathered around the Mission Control Center as we're watching the 3 Merlin engines on the first stage light. And we have got shutdown for the boost back burn. So currently we're coming up on T plus 7 minutes. Second stage continues to head into orbit. First stage is coming back to the drone ship. Let's go bound to the floor for the landing burn and the entry into orbit of the second stage.
So
now this is like re-entering the atmosphere and coming back down.
The first stage is just completed and looks successful. You can still see camera footage from the first stage descending down. Hopefully we'll be able to maintain video all the way down to the drone ship.
What a great shot that is. It's beautiful. Now, so as you know, sometimes we lose that video in the drone ship. There's a lot of vibrations happening there. We're going to try our best to keep that link, and hopefully once that landing burn hits, we'll catch it, we'll see it visually. And if all goes well, Falcon 9 will be standing proud there on the deck of our drone ship.
You may have noticed little puffs of what looked like smoke coming out from between the grid fins every once in a while. Those are part of the attitude control system. I think this is the
landing burn. Looks like the landing burn has just started, so we should be coming right down on the deck of Just Read the Instructions.
This is a single engine landing burn, so it's a slower decrease in speed.
You can actually see the deck of the drone ship right now.
Wow.
To the video, it's to be expected. Incredible. Just totally incredible.
Yeah, shoot it up to space and have it land back down. And you can reuse it.
Just read the instructions for West Coast drone ship. This is fantastic.
This is the first landing on Just Read the Instructions. And the first time we've attempted anything on it for over a year, so we're all very happy. Now we have 2 drone ships that have both successfully received first stages.
Wow, and we can see it the entire way there.
Party over there.
So props to the team for making that work.
And the crowd goes well.
Very cool. So
what makes it such a big deal? Why were they so happy? What do you think?
I bet that's how every success
everything that goes well, because it's just a lot of money, a lot of effort.
Yeah, it's and it's just exciting, you know, all of that hard work, all of those calculations, all of that double, triple, quadruple checking
and
all going according to plan. Yeah, what an awesome moment. I like that their little landing pad there, its name is Just Read the Instructions. That's got to be a silly inside joke,
to somebody.
Yeah, so that's cool. And yeah, like we said, this is
the second time that they've used the primary rocket now
for this correct,
for putting it up and landing it.
Correct. So
they they have a reusable rocket that's feasible.
Yeah, and they doubled their investment on that rocket, right? So they have the cost of what it took to produce that rocket, because they landed it now twice, and they could refurbish it, maybe send it up a third time. Like, who knows? That's exciting stuff, man. We're moving, we're marching boldly closer to a future where space travel just becomes viable for everybody. Really cool.
Amazing, yeah.
Really amazing.
Yeah, because remember, nobody had computers, and now we all have them in our pocket. Now we have a reusable rocket. Who knows, man?
Yeah.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah. So congratulations to those guys. Seriously, that's awesome. Number 6. Mosquitoes, Tom.
Mosquitoes. We actually saw a mosquito today.
I know.
Flew right up to you. It was like, where can I bite you?
Yeah.
They're coming.
Yeah, here we go. Mosquitoes fly unlike any other animal, as reported by Richard J. Baumfree et al. In a study published by Nature on March 29th, 2017. The insect, quote, exhibits unusual wing kinematics. Their long, slender wings flap at remarkably high frequencies for their size, greater than 800 hertz, and with lower stroke amplitudes than any other insect group, end quote. Even though mosquitoes primarily hover, the aerodynamic mechanism does not match similar hovering aircraft like helicopters or drones. Baumfree and his team used high-speed cameras to capture the physics of the figure-8 formation of Culex mosquito wing beats at 10,000 frames per second. We can take a short look at some of that video courtesy of Baumfree et al. And MPG Press. So we'll do that. There's actually no sound to this video.
Just bring up the old mosquito.
So watch closely for the figure 8 in the wing pattern.
What is this, 10,000 frames per second?
Yeah.
Said? Okay, so really slowed down.
Yeah, Kyle, we got to get a camera that can do that so we can make some funny videos.
Slow-mo stuff.
Yeah. All right, let me know when to hit play on this guy. Cool.
Yeah, so their main point was that it doesn't flap its wings, that it does a weird figure 8, and what that does, that frequency makes a certain sound, you were saying to me.
Correct.
And
so
we're gonna get to that, right?
Yeah, so 800 hertz, that is a buzzing noise. I'm sure everybody's familiar.
Hear the bzzz,
yeah.
You hear it in your ear, you're like, whoa, get out of here,
So that's important, they think.
Yeah, so they're saying they specifically fly this way in order to make that buzz.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
So, where did I leave off? Here we go. The researchers think the odd flight pattern may have evolved, quote, as a result of sexual pressure to reach higher frequencies, end quote. So
they're saying that their partners would find a higher frequency more desirable for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like, it just, I guess that's just the way it happened. The mate kind of sees that as like a stronger sort of buzz, or a higher buzz, however that happened, that was favorable for reproduction.
Right.
So that's why they fly this weird way.
So what's interesting about that, Tom, is that evolution typically tends to favor mechanisms that are advantageous to survival, and this would be classified as something advantageous to survival. Reproducing is necessary for the survival of a species, but it actually is a poor mechanism for flight.
For actually flying.
Yeah, so it's a weird backwards kind of mentality.
Yeah, we were talking about how evolution is super complicated. Here's an example where they develop flight like any other organism would, but then have a weird way to make flight happen simply to make a different buzzing sound for reproduction.
Yeah.
That's a really weird concept to grasp, how that would evolve. This process of flying and how that could be passed on or changed in the future. Like, evolution is kind of a crazy concept.
Now, we see evolutionary trends towards
certain features,
sexual mechanisms quite often in birds and in humans even, honestly, and other insects, right? Like bumblebees do a ritual dance for their mating process. But what we don't often see is this contrast or like stark removal of making a feature of yourself like worse, in a sense. Like you don't normally sacrifice the ability to fly easily in order to gain
a little reproductive advantage, but
here it is.
Yeah, I think we brought up a good point. There's a lot of mosquitoes and they're pretty successful parasites. They don't need to be super efficient at flying.
Right.
They're kind of thriving all over the world.
Yeah.
So it's just a weird way of evolution that they developed that way.
Yeah. Now, in related but unrelated news, research evaluating the efficacy of mosquito repellents has been published by Stacy D. Rodriguez and colleagues. Quote, a large number of different spray-on repellents and wearable repellent devices are commercially available. This study focuses on the efficacy of 11 different repellents in reducing the number of Aedes aegypti female mosquitoes attracted to human bait, end quote. The researchers basically used a wind tunnel to measure the attraction rate of mosquitoes as they move toward a human wearing different types of repellents for a blood meal. We can take a look at the table of results provided by the study, courtesy of Rodriguez et al. So I'll bring that up as well.
Check out the table.
And, oops, don't want to do that. Let's see here. Quote, the personal sonic mosquito repeller, PIC Corporation, Linden, New Jersey, we tested had no effect on the overall mosquito attraction to the human subject. This confirms the results of a previous study that tested similar devices and found that mosquitoes are unperturbed by them, end quote. Quote, none of the bracelets we tested caused any significant reduction in mosquito attraction. Although the active ingredients in some bracelets may be mosquito repellents, we hypothesized that the concentrations that are emitted by all of the bracelets that we tested were too low to have an effect, end quote.
So I've actually seen Chrissy, my girlfriend, wears that little thing, you know, that you can like clip onto you.
Yeah.
That's supposed to get rid of mosquitoes.
So that one, actually, if it's the off clip-on, that's the one that actually they found the most success with.
That one was the most successful.
So
interesting.
Yeah. But the kind of the sonic ones that are saying sound waves that will repel the mosquitoes
doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do anything.
It needs to be an actual mosquito repellent.
Correct.
And they're saying a lot of times the doses are pretty low.
Right. Especially the little bracelets.
The little bracelets, you might that big off clip-on might be the only thing that will work.
Yeah, that's not doing anything. Now, interesting to note here, a couple of the things listed on the table. So the sonic mosquito repeller, Mosquito Vert, which I don't know what that is, and the Cutter brand Citro Guard all scored higher attraction rates than the positive control.
So they literally do nothing.
So mosquitoes were actually more attracted to those people, which doesn't make any sense. But
interesting.
Nonetheless, that's what the results kind of prove. Now, this is a tough study, I think, to do because you know, you're measuring attraction rates. You're not really measuring the bites.
Yeah, you're measuring whether they're going towards you or not. Yeah,
right.
I think
So I think it's a fair study to kind of take something away from. But definitely not totally conclusive, maybe.
Agree.
But that's good. Getting ready for the summer, dude.
Yeah, it was funny in the chat. They were saying human bait, that they say.
Yeah.
Blood meal. Like, yeah, someone's just standing there waiting to get bit by mosquitoes.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
You got to pay that guy something, right? You can get paid to get eaten by mosquitoes. I don't know if I'd want the job, but it's out there.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yep.
Number 7. Asteroid BZ509, which was discovered in 2015, has been determined to be a retrograde co-orbital asteroid of the planet Jupiter, according to a study conducted by Paul Weigart, Martin Connors, and Christian Vallet.
So, retrograde orbital asteroid of Jupiter. So what does that exactly mean?
So, this basically means that the asteroid revolves around the sun in the opposite direction than most other orbiting bodies in our solar system. And there's another little video here
as to why.
As to why, yeah. So this video, I think, is narrated and stars Paul Weigart, who is part of the study. So, Kyle, if you could let me know when to hit play.
This is a story about asteroid BZ, a strange asteroid in our solar system. So everybody knows that the Earth goes around the sun, and all the other planets go around the sun as well. And they all go in the same direction. It's counterclockwise when seen from above. And 99.9% of the million or so known asteroids go around the sun in exactly the same direction. But asteroid BZ doesn't. If you imagine the solar system as a racetrack where the planets are these monster trucks and the asteroids are these ridiculously small clown cars going around the sun, they're all going in one direction except for a few oddballs like BZ. My co-researchers and I have been studying BZ using telescope observations and computer simulations since not long after it was discovered in 2015. BZ manages to avoid Jupiter by swerving around it at just the right moment, and Jupiter's gravity actually helps it do that. It traps it in this kind of state and protects it. The other asteroids, the other Trojan asteroids, is mostly by luck. BZ just has to be lucky enough not to hit one. Well, the implications of this are not really well understood at this point. We have a mystery on our hands, but the scientific investigation has really just begun. BZ might be an ordinary asteroid that just got into this strange state through an extraordinary set of coincidences, or it might be something fundamentally different and maybe even a little bit more interesting. But the detective work has just begun.
Cool. So,
So yeah, most stuff usually goes around the same way. So does not have to do with as your solar system is forming, as it's all condensing. It's a conservation of its angular momentum, where as it's initially spinning, as it starts forming, that's why everything orbits the way it does. That's where the energy was initially.
Right.
So everything sort of revolves that way.
Yeah.
99.9% of things in the solar system do that. They continue with the way that it sort of all started forming.
Right, which makes perfect sense. What's interesting for me on this one is you see those clusters that are kind of going around in orbit with Jupiter. Those are bunches of asteroids called the Trojans that are shepherded along by Jupiter's pretty high, significant amount of gravity.
Yeah,
right?
So they're in their specific spots because of the gravity.
Because of equal pull from Jupiter and the Sun.
So that those two are like sort of equilibrium points for them to exist.
Correct.
And they float around there. And then this little guy goes through them the wrong way.
But what's crazy is this is part of Jupiter's system, right?
So it was one of those, right? They're saying like kind of originally, maybe?
I don't know if you can say that it was one of those Trojan asteroids, but it's
part of that system.
It's in this system only because of how Jupiter is positioned, right? It couldn't have happened any other way. So, and it's been happening this way for millions of years, they determined, which I think is really kind of unique. I like these little physics quandaries like the fact that Venus rotates the wrong way. Like, we don't really know why
how that happened.
We think probably something crashed into it or something along those lines, but it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so the only reason we can say it doesn't make sense is because we know the way orbits and energies work, and 99.9% of them work this way, and that's what makes it odd.
Yeah.
It doesn't follow the physics. So like they said, maybe it's a lemony snicket, a series of unfortunate events,
perhaps
leads it to just go that way, or like he said, maybe there's something we don't know yet.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So moving right along, number 8. Researchers at the University of Utah have captured footage of an American badger burying a domestic cow carcass in the Great Basin Desert. Quote, while badgers are known to scavenge and to cache small food items underground, this is the first evidence of an American badger caching an animal carcass larger than itself, end quote. And we have another video here.
I actually saw this one quite a few different places on the internet.
Yeah, so did I. So that's why I wanted to include it.
Sharing it around and try and get some clicks. It's an interesting one, though.
Credit goes to Frainer, Buckley, and Christensen, and Sekersioglu, as well as the University of Utah. And Kyle, you let me know when to hit play there. Cool.
University of Utah. Yeah, such a weird choice of song. Can't get over it.
I know. I kind of like it though.
So he's just burying the cow.
Yeah.
Takes him a while.
Yeah.
Days, yeah, more than a day. 2 days.
I love this music. I did it.
So they usually cache them away, so they'll just dig them up and use them and eat it?
Yeah, they'll eat it.
Yeah,
eat it later on. Yeah, in the winter or whatever.
So that kind of like helps preserve it?
Yeah.
So it doesn't rot away as quickly?
That's a technique that certain cultures of people have used actually in the past. So when Kayla and I visited Iceland, that's a tradition that the Icelandic people used to do, where they would bury fish and things that they had caught in the fall for the wintertime because they had no other way to store it, and the conditions are so harsh that they can't go fishing during the wintertime. But then the fish would become kind of like rotten, and they would still eat it. It's really gross. Fermented fish.
Gotcha.
last story, hang in there. Number 9, Tom.
Bill Nye.
Bill Nye has announced he will be attending the March for Science in Washington, D.C. on April 22nd, 2017. The news was announced via a blog post on the Planetary Society's webpage, of which Nye is the CEO. Quote, "Greetings, members, supporters, and global community. Big news, the Planetary Society will join the March for Science on April 22nd, 2017. I am serving as an honorary co-chair for the march, and the Planetary Society is an official partner. I will march at the main event in Washington, D.C., but there will be upward of 400 sister marches around the world. We will assemble with citizens everywhere, whether they are formal scientists or thoughtful citizens from other walks of life, to march in support of science. After all, science is universal." End quote. So, if you were planning on going down to Washington, D.C.,
you got people joining you?
Yeah, you'll. This seems like a pretty concerted effort now, with lots of kind of the spokespeople gathering.
In our private conversations, not on the show, we've kind of been like, where are a lot of the big science organizations? Like, where are their statements? Like, what, like, where's this news? So it's good to see that they're putting a lot of effort into this march to get their information out there. But, the news doesn't really cover what a lot of these organizations are saying.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So, yeah, interesting nonetheless. We haven't announced any official plans for Earth Day or the March for Science yet, but I know that's fast approaching, so we'll have to
figure something out.
Yeah, come to some determination. So, excellent. Tom, what's in Tom's Corner this week?
Yeah, so I'm going to go through it a little quickly this time, and it kind of relates to last week. So, last week we were talking about meditation, and the article that I found and brought up is kind of shedding it in not a negative light, but kind of questioning what are its usefulness is. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of trying to, give my point of view, saying I think it's useful. I use it in these ways.
Right.
But when you look up what I want to talk about, just exercise and what exercise does for your health, it's extremely clear when you look it up what the benefits are for exercising. Where I do believe meditation can help a lot of people in their lives if they, it's like a skill if you develop it.
Sure.
But exercise, I think, is something that takes a little bit less attention that can be done, I think, easier. Mm-hmm. I would recommend starting with exercising and trying to get in that mode of using your body mindfully while you're exercising, and then maybe branch that into meditation, because I think meditation is a little bit more of an advanced skill of exercising.
Okay.
So, I don't know if we'd be able to bring it up, Kyle, if you have the Mayo Clinic. If you just Google for what are the effects of exercising, how can this impact my health? All healthcare professionals, all the research that's been done, so many positives come from exercise.
Right. Really, no negatives.
Yeah, there's if you're exercising, that's what you were made to do. You're an organism. Mm-hmm. You're mobile. You were created to be able to move around.
Totally.
So, as you read more and more about exercise, they talk about things as we bring them up. They talk about things like controlling your weight, combating health conditions where you're going to bring up your good cholesterol as well as keeping your triglycerides down, all simply by exercising.
Let me bring it up for you.
So as we can go through it. So, yeah, this is straight from Mayo Clinic. If you just Google exercise, they're telling you weight, you're going to have better good cholesterol, lower fatty triglycerides, saying you can improve your mood, and it's going to boost your energy on their first page. And as you switch to the next one, promotes better sleep, put the spark back in your sex life, and it's like a fun social thing that you can do.
Yeah.
So we were talking about medications a little bit earlier in the day at some of the crazy side effects that can be anywhere from dizziness to vomiting to even something we were talking about is change in consciousness.
Yeah.
And these are from pills. And you don't really know, it's...
What does that even mean?
Yeah, nobody even really knows. They're just trying to cover themselves, basically saying that, some people had weird side effects, so we're putting that in there.
Yeah.
So to watch our backs. And then you read something like exercise, and there's no negative side effects. And it can help in so many aspects of your life. So the one thing I wanted to focus that, I mean, this is just fact. You know, any medical doctor will tell you need to exercise.
Yeah.
So the point I wanted to focus on isn't the exercise that you're doing exactly, but what you're doing when you're not exercising.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people, when they go into it, they think that they do their job if they go to the gym for a few days of the week, maybe 40 minutes for a few days, and that's commendable. But then they don't live in accordance to how they're acting. So they're not properly refueling their body a lot of times, and they're not giving themselves enough time to rest and be in a position of being anabolic or being able to build muscle.
Right.
So when you're resting, your body sort of needs all the good stuff that it needs, and it needs to be in a calm enough state of stress where you can actually build up muscle when you're exercising, as opposed to getting the energy from actually breaking apart some muscle fibers and gaining energy that way.
Right.
What you want to do is keep your body relaxed enough and fueled enough the correct way to get what you want out of your exercises. So the point I want to make is that if you want to put on some muscle mass, you really have to eat a lot of food.
True.
And you need to give your body the extra that it needs so that it can take care of everything. And then at the end of the day, still has time on itself to build back your muscles and reincorporate them and build them up better. Because what you're doing when you're exercising, getting sore, you're sort of breaking apart those muscle fibers, and you can feel the circulation going to that muscle.
Right.
But what a lot of people aren't taking into account is that everybody knows, yeah, the exercise is good for you, but the point I'm really trying to make is that the exercise that you're doing, I want to make sure that you're doing enough to really support it in your lifestyle, and not opposed to overdoing yourself and not eating enough. You know, people have a hard time getting into exercise regimes where they have super strict goals of like losing weight and things like that.
Right.
Because it's an extremely complicated process of building muscle and how much water you have in your body and what your body's actually doing with the food that you take in. And are you using fats when you're doing your cardio? Like, are you actually kind of fitting all the pieces together?
Yeah.
Because I've done it like sort of both ways, right? Where I've just worked out like crazy and not really tried to supplement the eating, the nutrition, and the rest and the proper lifestyle to support it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've done it where I do exercise and then I support and I think of how much, you know, work did I do? How much food do I need to put back into my body? And it's sort of like a give and take every day of what was your physical activity, how much does your body need, and what are you trying to do with it? Where a lot of people, they go into it saying, less calories, I need to lose weight,
right.
and, you know, I just need to get in there and do something.
And I just need to fit it into my schedule. Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, it's a habit, it's a lifestyle, it's a way that you make it all work.
So would you say that your body literally needs to focus on receiving the benefits of exercise, and so you supplement exercise with proper rest, proper water, and in some cases thought, like meditation, to enhance it?
That's kind of the point I'm trying to get at. Is we know that there's positive effects, right? If you do it, but you can have better or worse successes of exercising, right?
Correct.
One person can go into it and really not get a whole lot out of it.
Yeah.
You know? And another person can really incorporate all those other things while doing exercises, and that can make all the difference. Giving your body, you know, just enough what it needs in order to build back and actually supplement your exercise program.
Right.
You know, because then when you're not really doing it in that balanced sort of way, it's so easy to fall out of it.
True.
Like, it just doesn't, you know, like, why would you keep hurting yourself, keep tearing your muscles up if you're not really building them back?
Yeah.
You know, it's like a super negative feedback where you're like, it just hurts and I'm not really getting anything out of it, because when I finally do heal, my body had a hard time healing because I didn't give it what it needed.
Right.
So as I read through all these things on the internet, it makes me think when me and Kyle worked out for years, literally trying to perfect what do you put in your body to get what you want out, along with what you're exercising. It takes a long time to find out what works for you.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I used to try all kinds of different things after exercising, and then once you find things that work for you, like I would have apple juice some good sugar right after I exercised, and then I'd have a lean protein.
Yeah.
And then I did that for a long time, and it literally changed everything. I gained so much more muscle mass, so much more energy, just by giving my body what it needs.
Yeah.
People are so quick to go to CrossFit and beat themselves up, to the point where their body's shot.
Mm-hmm.
They can't even move anymore. And then they're trying to stay lean and in shape. And a lot of people do it. You see a lot of extremely fit, muscular CrossFit people.
Sure.
And then you see a lot of people who actually do struggle through that sort of process. So I think for some people they're overdoing it a little bit. And I think you really need to focus on your rest period.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty easy to engage your muscles. You just do the exercise.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that meditation, that mind-body connection, that you really do gain the benefits of exercise.
Yeah.
Where you'll have better sleep, better energy, all those things that they tell you, not just by getting outside and walking. So exercise can take you to a new baseline that's better than you're at now. Like you might have better neurochemistry where you're in a better mood, you're at a better baseline. You're just sort of better off, but the more mind-body connection, the more you're aware of what you're doing to your body and what you're doing to help build it back, I think is the bigger part than what exercises you're actually doing.
Very cool.
Because I know tons of people out there, I was one of them, exercise, and then I'd have a crappy diet.
Oh yeah.
And it just happened to work out, that I'm like 22 years old and it doesn't matter what I eat, and it still allowed me to exercise. But I'm learning as I get older that a lot more goes into it than just eating a lot of food and lifting a lot of weights.
Yeah.
It's a very delicate balance of finding how to fit that into your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think it's a point that a lot of people miss when they try and do these things is that, like Chris says, 8-minute abs. I'm not hating on CrossFit. I'm not hating. I'm just saying that there's a lot of things out there that really beat up your body, and a lot of people don't focus on the correct way to properly build it back up after working out so difficult.
I think more in line with what you're saying is CrossFit is good for those who it's good for, but it's not for everybody. And like for me, I don't think I would benefit really from doing a CrossFit regimen because my body has always struggled with recovery. So, and I know this from my years spent running, where it's like I need to give my body probably more rest and better supplementary nutrition, and
as you exercise more.
And radical explosive exercising that CrossFit kind of promotes might not be the best way for me to go about trying to exercise in that manner. But yeah, I mean, definitely an interesting insight. I mean, you've been the exercise guy for as long as I've known you.
Yeah, what feels good is I'm finally getting back into it.
Yeah.
Because, it's a lot of trouble with injury with working out. Obviously it makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're in pain, you don't want to exercise. But as I'm slowly realizing, like back in the day, years ago, I would feel like garbage if I didn't go to the gym.
True.
Like, I was like, why do I feel so bad? And then I started to think to myself, wait a minute, is this how everybody feels that doesn't go to the gym? Like, do they not know the secret? That you can just, like, sort of make your life better? That's sort of how I thought about it. I mean, and then with injury and stuff, I sort of fell out of it. But getting back into exercising, that's a good point, too. Yard work beats on your body. Like, there's a lot of ways of engaging your body. And the whole take-home point I want to make is that the mind-body connection and what you're giving back to your body after you exercise is definitely as important as the exercise you're actually doing.
Yeah, I agree. Very cool.
But it's tough, it's tough to keep all the balance together and to do it all.
Totally tough. So, thank you again, Tom, for sharing another insightful topic. I'm really liking Tom's corner here. I really like it a lot.
I like what Nash said. He said at his CrossFit they supplement a lot of diet and rest, and that's great. I know that he does it the right way. He knows that you really got to put back into your body what you're doing out, because he works a lot and he exercises a lot. It's a huge toll on your body. You gotta fuel it up the right way.
Just gotta cut down on the ketchup now. That's all.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. That's all we have for you. A little long this week, I know, so thank you guys for sticking with us. We will be back next week with episode number 10, double digits.
Number 10 already.
Jeez,
exciting.
Man, I can't believe it already. That's awesome. So thank you again for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Bye, guys.